the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
They could be just like they were in 2023 and 2024 and be capable of winning a championship again.
We shall see. That's why they play the games, Matt Green.
Absolutely. And the schedule is obviously the wild card there too. They only have 3 home games in the SEC, Clemson out of conference, Texas and Alabama on the road. So the schedule is no joke. There's going to be no but about what Georgia's doing on the field next year. If they start 5-0, 6-0, they're going to be like the consensus number 1 team in the country. So there won't be anything to say about the strength of schedule.
Speaking of just contenders and everything else, Ole Miss, obviously, we'll see what happens with Walter Nolan, the number 1 player in the portal altogether. He's down to Oregon and Ole Miss reportedly. Buy or sell, Matt Green? Ole Miss is building, because I think there's 2 different conversations here, and I'm curious where you're at with this. Buy or sell? Ole Miss is building a 2024 contender for an actual title, or are they building just a playoff contender? Because I've heard contender thrown around and them going for it. I'm hearing a lot of Ole Miss is going for it. So for you, Juice Wells, good get.
Before
Walter
I answer
Nolan,
your question, on this rundown here, you have FSU vibes, and I need you to explain what FSU vibes means, because I have this feeling you're saying FSU vibes as in they're a contender but not a true title contender. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Where
because I take offense to that, sir. FSU did not lose to anybody. Who's to say they were not a true title contender?
I think they lose if they play an SEC schedule. But I had my Jordan Travis doubts. I have some Jackson Dart doubts. I don't know if Jackson Dart can win 3 playoff games in a row. I don't know if he can beat Alabama, A&M, LSU and company next year. Georgia too. Yeah. Dart's fine. I like Dart. He was better this year than he was last year, but he doesn't pop off the page. I don't think Jackson Dart's going to be in the Heisman finalist group. I don't think he's going to be one of the 4. I could be wrong. We'll see what year 3.
It would be like a Bo Nix Heisman. That's
maybe.
Okay, his stats might say one thing, but we know he's not the best player in college football.
Right. And what I mean by the FSU thing,
kind of Heisman, I could see.
If Ole Miss played if they played in the ACC next year with this roster, they'd be the favorite potentially. You could talk me into Ole Miss being the best ACC team next year, but this schedule's hard. And the reason I put FSU vibes on the rundown is just when I was thinking about contender and FSU wasn't in the blue chip ratio this year. They obviously were very top heavy. They won big in the portal. Keon Coleman was a huge ad. Jared Verse obviously was a great ad the year prior. They have a lot of dudes. They did really well in the portal, but it was top heavy. If they got hit with some injuries, they would have been in some trouble, but they played a weaker schedule, played a weaker conference. Ole Miss has got a great schedule. So that's one of the positives here. If you're looking at Ole Miss and you're trying to talk yourself into them being...
I don't know about great.
It's a great schedule for the SEC.
It's not a gauntlet, I would say. Yeah, that's fair. It's not a gauntlet, but just to share with people, they still have at LSU, Oklahoma, and Georgia on it, and at Florida. So it's not Florida.
But you'll be favored in what, 2 of those games at least?
But it's not the worst schedule I've seen for sure. It looks a little like a Missouri schedule from a few years ago. You got some Kentucky and South Carolina. There are a lot of SEC East on there. But yeah, really no one out of conference. Wake Forest, the toughest non-conference game they play. So it's not the worst I've seen for sure.
To me, when I looked at it, was a 10-2. And 10-2 in the SEC can get you in the playoff. And that can get you in that bottom half, and you sneak in, and then anything can happen. I think
that 10-2 would be more impressive than this year's 10-2.
Oh, yeah. I would agree. And you look at it, and I'm like, I don't think they're a title contender. I still just think they're a playoff contender. Could they win a couple games? Potentially. I just don't think Jackson Dart's going to run the gauntlet. I don't think they have the all-around depth to still... I just can't get there with Ole Miss. So when I'm hearing Ole Miss is going for it and Ole Miss is bringing all these dudes, and I'm like, they're good players. Ole Miss has done really well in the portal. I just don't think it's going to be enough for them to be true title contenders. I don't even think they're going to be better than what we saw from FSU this year.
Playoff contender means something completely different, though.
Yeah.
It's like you're a top 15 team, you're a playoff contender versus like needing to be top 6 or 7. So, I think they're definitely a playoff contender. They're killing it in the portal. They're doing some serious work in the portal. So if they get a guy like Walter Nolan to add on to all of that, I think that you have to say they're a legit contender, because also
title contender.
Hey, I mean, what's a title contender? Like TCU played for a national championship, right?
Could you see Ole Miss playing for a national title next year?
I mean, I would never predict it, but they went 10-2. And
that's what I want these people who are throwing Ole Miss as a contender. I'm like, put your name on it. Say, I can see Ole Miss in the national championship next year, because I can't.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, it's just because we haven't seen it. But they went 10-2, and if they get better, it's like they're 11-1 and they're in the SEC championship. So it's not like they're that far off from achieving that. But I'm with you. As someone who's definitely said Ole Miss was a fraud more times than not, I think they're seeming more and more legit than they have.
And look, I like what they're doing. To be clear, I'm not hating on Ole Miss. They're doing the bet. Like, Lane Kiffin is maximizing every last bit of what he can to win at Ole Miss. Pete Golding's doing work on the recruiting trail. These are all positive. What they're doing is correct. They're finding a way to win, and they're putting all their chips in with a nice schedule, with a lot of returning talent. Like, they're doing the right things. Like, I am not disagreeing with that. But when people start throwing around the word contender, I'm like, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that they're going to be the best team in the SEC this year? You want to put your name on that? Are you sure you want to go down that road? Do it if you want to do it. I think they're going to be very good.
Mean, power rankings wise, what were they, like the third best team in the SEC this year? Fourth?
Going into next year?
I'm just saying this year.
I'm only talking 2024. I'm just
saying if they were third,
Texas and Oklahoma are coming into this conference, Matt Green.
That's definitely a valid point. And Texas was better than them this year.
Yep. Oklahoma could be better than them next year.
They might not have been better than Ole Miss this year. We'll decide that one on October 28th.
Yeah.
In Oxford, Mississippi.
Do you think they're better than Auburn next year?
I mean, they don't play Auburn, but that's a pretty big jump for Auburn to make. I mean, that's a 6-win team. Yeah. Or were they 7 wins? 7-5?
7-5, yeah.
7-5. So yeah, I think Auburn could make that jump, but if Peyton Thorne's still the guy, like, how big of a jump are they making?
That's fair. The quarterback stuff's still quite bad. But also I think Tennessee.
I think they're gonna
neutral site Tennessee, Ole Miss. I would pick Tennessee with Nico and company. I would go that way.
I'm sure you would.
Could be wrong, but we'll see. Final one here,
Bulldog, November 9th, traveling to Oxford, so that'll be a big time one.
That'll be a sneaky huge game. But look,
and then they got a late bye, and then Florida and Mississippi State.
Well, this is a 2-bye season for everybody, which will be weird.
And we got Ole Miss, Mississippi State on a Saturday. It looks like.
They moved it. I don't like that.
Man, I love that game on Thanksgiving night.
I'm sure they didn't like it. I'm sure families didn't really like that. That was like something they had to do, or maybe, but no, I preferred that.
I was a big fan. I watched the Lions. Watch the Lions at noon, and then watch the Cowboys at some point will play, and then Ole Miss, Mississippi State at night. Is A&M Texas? Do we know what day that is? They played on Friday? Thanksgiving. They put on Thanksgiving sometimes, right?
No, they put it on Friday. The Friday after Thanksgiving, like Black Friday.
Yeah, man, I'm disappointed by that. Egg Bowl on Thursday, A&M Texas on Friday. That's rivalry weekend's all about.
When's November 30th?
I think I just looking at. I think that's a Saturday, actually.
Is it? Let's see. I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, that's a Saturday.
I guess they are playing Saturday this year. I thought they were doing it on Friday.
Maybe Arkansas, Missouri. They'll keep that Friday slot. Yeah. They seem to like. Who knows?
That's sad. And it was a Thanksgiving Day game from 2008 to 2011. So you're right. I thought it was the Friday, but it was Thanksgiving.
Okay. Have we talked since the SEC schedule release? Did we even talk about that? That was a whole thing to get into.
No, we're not doing that. Tennessee's going to go 12-0. Final thing here, Mac.
Do they have a conference next year? Who does Tennessee? NC State? Is that the only good? Okay.
Good non-conference game, yeah.
And see some of these Big Ten schedules released though, like Michigan playing Texas next year, and like Oregon. It's or maybe they play Washington. Yeah, there's some good ones
for sure. Final one here, and we'll wrap up tonight, Matt Green. Most intriguing quarterback move in the portal for you was who?
I have a couple different ways to go with this. So I'm going to start with the guys that have committed places. Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore both going to Oregon is kind of the most intriguing thing, because it's like, I guess we're just building rosters now. It's like, like what we got to have a first and second stringer. Who knows? Like, battle it out. Maybe that's the new approach. You just get whoever you can get, battle it out, go to the portal again next year.
But that's hard to do, man. That's a lot of money too. That's the other problem, is that's expensive. To do what Oregon's doing is expensive.
Maybe. And Dante Moore, maybe he's just, he knows he's not going to play right away. And he's just like, look, I should have stayed committed to Oregon. I made a terrible mistake. So maybe that's all it is correcting his decision from the previous year. But Will Howard going to USC to play for Lincoln Riley. It's just, when I look at the pedigree of Lincoln Riley quarterbacks, it's the whole Sesame Street. Which of these things is not like the other? Like, Will Howard does not fit with Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams, like just Heisman after Heisman. And then Will Howard, is he about to go off?
I don't know, but if it was at Oklahoma, like, we would be like, good get by Oklahoma. Like, that's the whole thing. It's a USC thing. It's not a Lincoln Riley thing. Like, if it was Oklahoma who stole Will Howard from Kansas State and Lincoln was still there, we'd be like, oh, great get, because Will Howard's really good. Like, Will Howard's been great for Kansas.
Kyler Murray, but I mean, what Jalen Hurts, what he was at Bama versus.
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.